Welcome to the Open House podcast where women talk real estate. I'm Steph Douglas and I'm here with Chloe and Valerie. How are y'all?
Doing great.
Yeah, doing great today.
Thank you so much for joining me. First of all, can you kind of tell us your backgrounds, just a little bit about you and how you met and all of that cool stuff?
You want to go?
Yeah, go ahead, Chloe.
My name is Chloe Kwon. I've been living in Austin for about 7 years now. Me and Valerie actually met through open house webinar on the chat section. It was during pandemic. I think it was like something about market analysis or something like that. And then I basically chatted to Valerie because we went ahead, around, did introductions, and we had pretty, common background in terms of work. We're both working in tech at the time. I'm a data scientist, and yeah, that's how we met and we got started. And then next thing you know, we became business partners.
Yeah, and I don't know why I just waved, but that's okay.
we're video too. So.
Yeah, I'm Valerie. I've been in Austin for over 15 years now, which is a crazy long time to be here and kind of see the change. My background is in tech as well. I'm on the ops program management side of things and trust and safety. And, in that webinar, in that, open house women investor group, it was great to see other women who were also, kind of in that tech space trying to, kind of make some moves in real estate. So it was exciting when Chloe, slid into my Zoom DMs, which I later learned I was not the only one, but I was the one that was most responsive.
Oh my God. Chloe was just out there sliding into DMs all over the place.
A Zoom DM.
Zoom DMs, yeah. That's really funny. Okay, so what about your common, so it was just that we were both in tech, or was it that you had common real estate goals as well?
I think there was a lot of things that we found out about each other that we had in common. When we were talking about it, we were kind of dating each other in a way because we were trying to align on our values aligned, right? Kind of how we think about work, how we think about, partnerships, kind of what our overall goal is with, what we're trying to accomplish with real estate. Because, I think real estate is really just the beginning of what we're trying to do. We're really trying to empower other women. We're really trying to create a space for women to come together, build their own communities, grow wealth. I think part of the values of why we worked so well is, not just kind of this tech background, but we're both immigrant women. And I think just that immigrant mindset, really helped solidify some of those values that we share.
Absolutely. Chloe, anything else? You're both first generation immigrant women, correct?
I am.
No,
Yeah.
Valerie, second generation, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I think first generation is when you're kind of the first, person born in the U.S. But both Chloe and I were not born in the U.S., so we're truly are immigrants.
Yeah, that's amazing. So all of those things kind of aligned, and Valerie, you were most responsive out of all of the people that. But what was the process like to get to the point where you were like, actually, yes, I'm ready to go, and we're gonna like align our futures and put our money together?
Yeah, I think Valerie, you can talk about sort of where you are in investing journey. For me, I was ready to go, right? So I already had sort of commitment to myself that I'm ready to invest, and I was doing a lot of different underwritings at the time with different asset classes, trying to figure out like what was like making sense, right? And what I could do, because there's so many ways that you can invest in real estate. And then, I saw Valerie sort of, talking to Valerie, we realized that, we do have similar, background, but also we have similar goals, right? So, I think it just kind of aligned in a lot of sense of what we're trying to do. And then so I actually had me being like an analytical background, I have like a whole spreadsheet of like questions that I go through with every potential partners. And it just like, after talking to her, I just got this sense. It's sort of like more intuition than anything, I think, for choosing a partner. That I got the sense that, I can trust her. We also have a similar, outlook on life, so that, I know that, in 5 years, 10 years, we're, going to make decisions together that, that aligns with both of us. And then we also have different skill sets, right? So I'm more on, me being a data scientist, I love running numbers. I love looking at financing. I love looking, all that stuff. But I don't love the operation side. And I love renovation, but I don't love the whole hospitality side. And I know Valerie is amazing at that. We're getting like rave reviews from our guests right now. And, I know I can't do that by myself. And so, I think just looking at holistically what we both bring to the table, it was just like really good fit.
Yeah.
That's amazing to hear. Go ahead, Valerie.
And
What else?
I was also in a space where I was really primed and ready to go, because the timing of everything when we connected, it was, kind of right. It was the summer of 2020, right after COVID hit, and right before COVID, I was in a deal with somebody else that I met through kind of the open house, environment, and we were getting ready to close on a deal, but that fell through just because of uncertainty with COVID. So I was also in a place where I was like, all right, I'm primed, I'm ready. So I think being in that right like headspace and mindset, being ready to make those decisions, and also being aligned in values and goals and future vision, I think that's what really made this partnership successful.
That's amazing. It sounds like you're both just like really, really ready to go. And when you say ready to go, you mentioned mindset, but it's also like you had the cash reserves. You were like, it was, the next step was just to pull the trigger. Is that right?
Yeah.
And could either of you have done this on your own? I know, Chloe, you mentioned like you don't like the hospitality side, but like, would this have been viable to do on your own?
I want to say, I mean, you probably could have at some point, but not at the timeline that we went, right? Because we both had the cash reserves, we both had W-2, as well as sort of because it was our first time developing. I think a lot of times, the banks are not going to trust you with, being a first time developer with, that much money, right? So I think having both of us pull both of our assets, and our W-2s, I think that made our case a lot stronger. I don't think anything is impossible, but I do think that having partners that you're aligned and you can do things together, it speeds up your investing process a whole lot.
Yeah. And for me, I've done some real estate. I've had some real estate experience by myself and also with a partner, and I just know that doing it in a partnership is really how I best show up. The accountability, the being able to rely on somebody. Like Chloe said, it's really with a partnership, I know that we can scale, we can move so much faster. And again, having the right partner, I think is the key in that.
Yes, I mean, we're all about partnership at Open House, as y'all know, and it's just really, really nice to hear. I mean, we're not talking to you at the beginning of your partnership. This is like after you've done a lot and you've accomplished a lot together. So it's really cool to see you still like each other, and to see that it was a successful project. But we're kind of like teasing everyone. We haven't even told them what you've done, and you've mentioned developing, which I think I think people feel like that's such an untouchable word and like, oh, he's a developer or whatever. That's what you hear. And the definition of a developer isn't accessible to a lot of people. So what did you guys do? What was this project? And yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so we basically bought a piece of land in East Austin in 78702 zip code, which is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a old house in it. We basically tore that down and built two houses on top of it from scratch.
Amazing. And that you said that, so like, yeah, we just, did it. But that there's a lot that goes into that. And I mean, just having the vision in the first place, but then like executing on top of that. Um, how did you decide that that was the way to go instead of buying something and renovating? Like, what was your decision process to say new build development is the way?
There is a few things that we considered, and in fact, we were hoping to be able to renovate and potentially add on to the existing structure and then build a second unit. But just when we got in there, we realized it just wasn't worth saving the existing structure. It was pretty small. There was, a lot of unknowns. And when you compared the cost of square foot to renovate versus to build, brand new, it just made sense to tear that down. Chloe did a lot of running the numbers to determine that this was the right strategy at the time. So Chloe, you want to share the numbers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think getting to this point of making the decision of like we want to develop, I think it at least on my end, it had a lot of background sort of analytics that went into it. So like, I ran different scenarios, underwritings on a lot of different, different ways of doing it, right? Like flipping or like, development or, renovating, heavy renovating, adding one ADU structure and renovating the front one. Like, there's so many ways to do it. But what we like the strategy that we landed, it was just like numbers wise, it was just so cool because it just worked. And and it, like in Austin, it's very hard to make the numbers work, right? Because
Yes.
things are just so much more expensive. But it worked. So I was like, well, let's try it. I know we've never done this before, but like usually my confidence and my decision comes from numbers because I'm just a numbers background person. That's
Yes.
how my brain works. And then I think having a partner like Valerie, I think that solidified like, okay, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
So do you want me to run the numbers or?
Well, we'll wait for numbers, but I love that that's what went into it. It was just like you had one strategy and then you sort of pivoted, and to make the numbers work, it's amazing. But what I guess we'll jump into like the financing portion. So you financed this a majority, like you didn't bring, I feel like some people are like, well, how did they have $500,000 cash? And that's like definitely not the case, right? So this was a loan, correct? What kind of loan did you get?
Yeah, so we ended up exploring a lot of different options, and we landed on a one-time close construction loan. So what we did is we first were able to buy the lot, and we had to put 15% down for that. The lot itself was 400,000. And then we were able to transition, and then we worked with our builders to identify kind of the cost of building what we wanted. And then the bank appraised that and said, okay, at the completion of everything, we expect it to be this value. We were in a really good time because in the O2 area, things were just appraising very, very highly. So because of that, when the bank looked at what we were proposing to build and compared it to kind of the current value, they appraised it at a pretty high amount. And that was awesome because we had to bring really little to the table outside of that 15% down for that initial lot loan. So it's kind of crazy to think about how little you need to bring to the table when you're taking out a loan for, just under $1 million, which I think is a secret that I think, wealthy people know and take advantage of all the time. And it was, we kind of learned that along the way.
That's so true. This type of thing, it just feels so out of reach. I mean, $1 million, how are we going to do this? Like really rich people know this and you leverage, debt to make this happen. And you were able to make the numbers work, which is incredible. And now it's a successful business, which is so cool. So I love that explored the options. I mean, did you think about other types of loans, or did you know that this was the loan that you want, the loan product that you wanted?
Well, it's one thing to want something and another thing to get it. A lot of times I think what deters a lot of people for developing is getting that financing, right? And like $1 million loan is not a small amount. And given that there's a lot, high risk from the perspective of the bank looking at your project, a lot of banks were not willing to loan, especially during pandemic, right? A lot of banks have discontinued their construction loan product type. I had to like call like 100 banks in like 2 months trying to like really pitch our projects, pitch our like our backgrounds, our why you should trust us. And then finally there's one bank that took a chance on us and say, hey, like I think go ahead, do it. And then it had the loan product type that we wanted. In terms of the terms, right? So the interest rates, the cool thing about a one-time closed loan is the rates gets locked in for the construction, so interest-only construction period, as well as permanent financing. So like we were basically getting the same, ridiculously low interest rate that we were getting back in 21, all the way to now, right? So, which is amazing. We would not have that if it wasn't for that loan product type. But also it's a luck in some sense because we didn't. This was like the only bank that said yes to us, right?
That's so inspiring though that multiple people told you no, and you were like, no, we're gonna find someone to tell us yes. And I think that says so much. That's like the mindset that we love in an investor. That's what it takes. Is like people are gonna tell you no. Mm-hmm. They're gonna say, "There's no way. Why would I trust you with this amount of money?" Right. And you found one that did, and that's all it took. So and definitely like the aspect of the interest rate climate. Things were so low, and that timing is just amazing. Did you have to? So you said interest only during the construction phase. So you didn't have to pay the whole entire payment, just the interest portion while you were constructing.
Correct. And the way that works, because it was also new to us, but you only pay on the amount that you've taken out, right? So out of that total amount, we had to obviously pay off the lot loan, right? So that was, and then during the course of the construction, the more draws we took, the higher that interest, payment, became, but still it was locked in at a rate. So that's just something, to think about with construction loans, the carrying costs. But the nice thing is those carrying costs are spread over, they're not a one lump sum that you have to pay up front like you do with closing costs. Those are costs that are spread over the course of the construction.
Right. So it eases it a little bit, but you still have those costs. And I'm sure you had to get, construction insurance and all of that fun stuff that it wasn't like you didn't have to pay anything. But yeah, it was still eased it a little bit. So in that, talking about like carrying costs, how long did this take? How long did it take from start to finish?
Overall, from start to finish, I think to getting a CO, the certificate of occupancy, I think it took 15 months, which is like, in the environment of Austin, it's not the longest time that it could take, given that, you're waiting for, permit process to be approved. And then also, there's like 3 bazillion inspections at every stage of your building. So it took 15 months for us to get CO.
That's amazing. Did you have to deal with permits yourself, or did you let your builder take care of that?
We actually, so one of the things that we had to do before we even got to that, construction phase was we had to vet out our team, because we couldn't have done this without our team. And one of the team members was permit expediter. So City of Austin, if anyone has tried to build an ADU or anything, you would know that the process here is ridiculous. It's like, it's so complicated. It's all just, you can't just do it by yourself.
No.
So you need a permit expediter. It does cost a little money, but it definitely helped us a lot in terms of facilitating sort of that getting approval process, which is great.
Yeah, I've dealt with the city a little, and it's such a challenge. And one person tells you one thing, and then you talk to someone else, and they tell you something different. So having someone to like ease that process, that's so smart. And I mean, talking about your team, that includes the permit expediter, but that is also architect. Who else did you have in your team? Your builder?
Our architects that we worked with to, really be able to kind of, since we were building from scratch, it was such an amazing opportunity to really build something with a vision, kind of knowing what we wanted to use it for at the end. We were able to be really creative in how we optimize the space, how we, optimize the layouts to create a ton of flexibility in how it could be used. Which, at the time that we were making those plans, right, it was kind of an uncertain time. So we wanted to have as many potential exit options, as many opportunities to, bring in cash flow. So that was, I think that's one of the huge benefits of being able to start from scratch, is to really optimize that layout. And then we found really incredible builders that, I think we just really developed a great relationship with and really trust. And one thing I'll note as part of this construction loan, so our builders actually had to sign on as part of us, kind of like signing on the dotted line for this loan. So they truly were kind of an integral part of the experience. And prior to any draws, the bank would come out and vet that yes, that work was completed. So I think having that additional, kind of like balance, like check and balance part throughout the process, especially when it comes to doling out money, was really meaningful.
Yeah. That's something that we tell people, like when they're getting construction loans, you do have to, have someone sign on and say, okay, I will be a part of this process. But it does that, you have someone else saying, no, I'm not giving you money until this is complete, which is, it's a nice second, the boss says I can't give you money. Not that we always need that, but sometimes it's nice to have. So you had your team, you had your partnership. What in all of this process would you say were the biggest challenges? Like what was hardest?
I mean, I think just the initial getting it to the initial stage and doing all of that, and really making sure that at every turn, sort of, you have to like make sure that your numbers still worked, right? Because times are changing really fast. Material cost was rising. There's labor shortage. There's a lot of backlogs of like delays of your materials, right? So at every stage, sort of having to reconfirm that things are still working and you were on track. That was crucial. Another thing that I didn't really expect it, but like how many decisions you have to make, right? We all know every time that you renovate a house, like there's like bazillion things. Like development is like that on steroids. You literally have to choose every single thing from, I don't know, where your windows go, where your stairs go, to your tiles and flooring and, the knobs and like where the AC unit is going to be housed. Like, every single thing you have to make the decision, or else you're going to be charged as like a, change order, which
Change fee,
costs money and delays. So it's just a lot of work, and we were having, working full-time jobs, during the day, right? So it was just a lot of those little things adding up. But, I think also like it was really fun. I think that made it, a whole lot better. And I think having that partner again is helpful for that process.
Yes. I mean, when you're renovating, you have some limitations. Like, we can't put this here. This was already here, so we're going to save money. But you had, sky's the limit, which is amazing and also sounds terrifying. So I'm like very impressed. What about with your partnership? Was there any road bumps? I mean, you're both extremely like straightforward. I feel like it's just you're able to be upfront about stuff. So I couldn't pick two better partners, honestly. But is there anything that you ran into that was different than you expected?
I wouldn't say it was different than we expected, but I think just like in any relationship, right? Communication is key, and just being really honest about kind of where you're at, where you feel like you need additional support, where, maybe you feel like somebody's not moving at the pace that you want them to, right? I think it's just, I think all those kind of natural things that come up in any sort of relationship in a business partnership, they're going to come up as well. And it's just about being able to have those open and honest conversations and feeling like you can bring that stuff to the table and it'll be received well. So, I think we definitely had many conversations over the course of this, and, we'll continue to have those conversations, but we've established that it's a safe place to have those conversations and that we can work through it.
So good. And not surprising, just given you and like advocating for women, and it's really impressive, and it's inspiring to see that it worked out so well. You mentioned that you made the layout super versatile, and you could, so that you could have exit options and income options. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is the part that I get most excited about. But we in order for kind of this project to check the box for the bank and for the city, it needed to work as two single family homes, one a front unit, one an ADU, and following all those parameters. So they work beautifully as two single family homes. However, we were creative in adding additional entry points into the master suites in both units. So now there's the opportunity to close those off. We also created another way that we can block off the main unit, so you can have kind of both the master suite and the attic, kind of blocked off from the rest of the home. So there's up to 6 different configurations across the space, across both units. So it just gives us a lot of flexibility in the combination between short, mid, and long-term rental that we could that we could take into account depending on kind of the ever-changing needs of the economy and people's desires. So
Absolutely. Chloe, any more on that? I know you're less about hospitality, but
I mean, yes, but also the numbers work, right? With
yeah.
the term rentals, we're thinking of maybe in a slower season, maybe we'll convert one of the units into a midterm rental while keeping the other short-term rental, sort of just so that we can maximize revenue. Because for me, it's at the end of the day, it is business, and we need, we have loan obligations, right? We need to make profit because it's at the end of the day, it's a business, right? And another thing that we wanted to create was like an experience, right? So we were really intentional in choosing the location that will enable people who are visiting Austin or maybe having a staycation or events, in order to be able to be in the sort of the neighborhood that is most good for that, that works best for that. So there's a lot of different options in terms of walking, to nearby coffee shops, restaurants. There are bars, there's Justine, there's breweries, all the stuff. As well as and being intentional about having sort of the common space that could be worked as an event space. So we've actually hosted multiple events up until now. In terms of we have regular monthly sort of like speaker series where we're doing educational series for women investors or women and ally investors, as well as having other kind of events, like pop-ups. We've had wine tasting, we've had all this stuff that we're really being intentional about how we can support our community, especially women entrepreneurs, right? Because at the end of the day, that's who we are. We feel really passionate about supporting that and being able to build out this community where people feel safe and we're growing. And then also, however else we can support, right? I think the beauty of having something that you've customized is you can also customize on top of that, right? So if there are other things that people want to do, like maybe they want to have a retreat or a corporate retreat at this place, we can certainly customize and build out for that specific purpose, right? So we're always looking for things and initiatives and things that we can do to be a more integral and helpful part for our community, which is, I think, so exciting, right?
Yes, it's so exciting. It's extremely cool to have built something from the ground up that supports your mission and your values. And I mean, it's Austin is always changing, and so the versatility is so exciting, and not just versatility in rental, in like, residential rental, but also events, because that's what you're passionate about, which is amazing. Okay, should we jump into numbers?
Yeah, I can walk us through the numbers. So, like I said, we acquired the land for 400 and put down 15%. When we converted into the one-time close construction loan, because the ARV comps were so high, we really only needed to bring like a couple extra $1,000 to the table, which is incredible.
Amazing.
And then over the course of the construction, we had carrying costs that that we accounted for, and then at the end of the construction, the ARV came in as expected. So that was also a great great check
Amazing.
mark.
And ARV is after repair value, just for anyone listening.
Yes. And then now we're being really conservative. We just launched this property at the end of February, just in time for South by. So we
Amazing.
are new, but it's actually been really great to be able to host such a variety of different events outside of just, overnight stays, short-term overnight stays. So, we're targeting bringing in revenue of about $10,000 a month, which we've been able to, hit so far, and are on track
Amazing.
to continue to hit that number. And then our expenses, from mortgage taxes, cleaning fees, maintenance fees, etc., are about 6,000 per month. So that gives us, about $4,000 per month in net revenue.
So good. So all in cash, was that just that 15% of the loan and then your carrying costs? So where were you all in cash wise?
Yeah, so 16, so it was about 60K for the down payment on the lot. And then, carrying costs about, 40. So all in about 100K, but it was spread out over the course of a year and a half, right?
Right, right.
So it wasn't as crazy. Like we didn't have to fork over 100K. It was actually really reasonable, given that in the beginning, me and Valerie split that 60K, right? So it was
Yeah.
30K out of pocket, which is, I think a lot of people might be surprised that if you're really good at being, having the due diligence and really understand, like, okay, how can we, and there's a whole story behind how we got this lot under contract for lower than it was on the market for, things like that. I think, if you're being creative, I think there's a way to not, needing so much of cash, up front, and then build
Absolutely.
that on.
Yes, amazing. And then as far as so you're saying cash flowing about 4,000 a month. Amazing. Congratulations. It's so cool. What do you do with that 4K? Do you have it? Do you have a certain number that you want to hit for reserves? Have you hit that already? Are you taking that as like quarterly payouts? What does that look like for y'all?
Our goal right now is just to, pay ourselves back, or kind of put the money back into the company to be able to, kind of account for the expenses throughout the acquisition and construction process. So, we're just a few months in, so that money is just going back to paying off our credit cards. So I think one other thing to note is, is furnishing, right? When you have one 4-bedroom, 4-bath, and then a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, that's a lot of furniture and a lot of knickknacks and decor. And we wanted to be really intentional and functional with what we selected. But one of the things that Chloe and I did is we scoured Facebook Marketplace, and I would say about 70% of our items came from Facebook Marketplace,
Wow.
because we really, we wanted to be really diligent and thoughtful about, how we spent our money. So
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a real hustle, is like getting in touch, planning a meetup, going to pick it up. So amazing.
yes, I will always remember. We rented these huge trucks from Home Depot to pick up stuff, and Chloe is driving this big truck with Tater, her her adorable pup in her arms, and backing up this huge truck with one hand. I was very impressed.
I know. There's like at one point there was like I think it was like a CrossFit gym that was like next to these warehouses that we go to, right? And then all these guys are just like watching me, holding Tater in one hand, backing out the other, and they're like, "This is gonna end so badly." And then I was like, "No, like I know how to drive big trucks,
Yes, you
That's
will.
amazing.
even under
Yeah.
woman, you know."
That's so funny. And just, I mean, Tater is like a very, very tiny poodle.
Very tiny.
That's amazing. Yeah. So it was definitely not like you still got your hands dirty a little bit. I mean, you had a builder, but there was still like some scrappy elements along the way, it sounds like.
Oh, we got our hands very dirty throughout this whole process. Sometimes we'd go, and pick out cabinets, and we would be asked, oh, are you guys the designers? And we're like, oh no, we are the developers, designers.
Yes.
Like we are everything throughout this process. So and it's empowering, right, to be able to say, because I think assume people assume less, right? And you could say, no, we are doing this thing and we're taking on these, big goals, big risks, and taking on, this responsibility, and making it happen. So it's nice to be able to, share our story and ideally empower other women to do the same.
Absolutely. I mean, we've all been in that situation where the contractor asked to speak with our husbands, or,
Yep.
that type of stuff, which, I mean, hopefully things are definitely changing for us, but it is such a struggle to be assumed that we're just like, designer, which love designers, but we could be anything in this process, which is so cool. You did not hire a designer?
Nope.
You picked everything up. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
It was a lot of work. But, I think at the same time, I think this actually is where women can be actually better
Yes.
than a lot of other builders. Because if you look at a lot of builder companies, they're mostly men, right? And you can see their end products reflecting that, right? A lot of things look very cookie cutter and a lot of stuff. And most of the development projects I've heard, it goes over budget because in development, I mean, same with renovation too, but in development, you can really spend a lot on anything. Like tiles can be like $100 per square foot, like easily, right? If you wanted
Easily.
designer stuff, like that you can spend as much money as your heart desires in
Yes.
development. But us being women, us being sort of immigrant and being scrappy, we were able to really choose out every single thing that looks expensive because that was our motto. We wanted, luxury look on a budget, right? So
Yeah.
things looked really expensive, but they're actually really economical, and a lot of times, they're more durable, right? Like our tiles, we everything that we chose, it wasn't expensive, but it looks, not that
Yes.
cheap, right?
Oh, I have been into so many poorly designed new builds that were obviously designed by a team of men. It's like, it's wild. And you're like, God, they could do anything. This is a new build. It's not like they were working under any confines. So that's such a good point. It's just kind of like there's an intuition about what looks good and the functionality of things. And I love that you're able to be efficient in your choices and not have to spend too much, because you're right. It's the range of what, especially tile, you're right. It's like you can spend $2 a square foot and you can spend $200 a square foot. It is truly wild. So yeah, that's a great point. And sounds like you saved a huge amount of money, not just in not having to hire a designer, but also in the materials that you chose.
Yes.
Huge variability. And I feel like when people ask me, how much is it going to cost to renovate this? It's like, well, it can cost you a huge range because it really depends on what you choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one other thing, Steph, that you mentioned, this idea of functionality, functionality is not a given, right? You have to be really intentional about how you're setting up that space, and being able to, have that end, kind of end user in mind, and think about how they're going to use the space, how they're going to gather, how they're going to walk through the space. Does this make sense for them, for it to feel just really easy and normal and convenient, right? And there has to be a lot of intentionality in order to be able to have that functional product at the end.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you did like a sneaky triplex. I mean, essentially, right? You didn't, because you zoning for an actual triplex where you have 3 actual units is not probably possible in this scenario. So you kind of did, you have so many options, not only the functionality, but also like the overarching function. It's so cool that you did that.
Yeah, and actually each of the units can be broken up into 2, so you really have up to 4 separate doors, if that's the desired outcome. And then we also have a pretty spacious carport that is kind of primed if and when we are ready to become its own studio.
Amazing. That's exciting. So that leads us to what's next for y'all. I know, Chloe, we were talking about before we started your Florida property. So you have outside partnerships, but are y'all two going to do anything extra or more after this project?
Yeah, I mean, I think sky's the limit, but I think what we want to focus on now is to build out the community around our current property, which is, our business is called Be Here Now. And so it's not just short-term rental. It's a brand for supporting local businesses, especially female entrepreneurs, and be able to support them through how leveraging our space and beyond. Right? We have some other ideas on how we can support them best in terms of the business. We want to create more businesses, right? So that's what we're working on. We're also focused on education, so we want to support other people into investing more in real estate. We're going to do that through hosting several events in our space, be really intentional about how we can support people. And then we're also open for other partnership, opportunities, right? I think one of the things that we, got most from the moment that we sort of opened doors was a lot of other people wanted to do the same, but they were like, I have no idea how to build, right? And I don't think that I have the capital, or I don't think I have the time or whatnot. And I think you also said this too, but I'll say in order for a deal to work, you don't have to bring all things to the table, right? There's 3 things that you need in order to make the deals work. You need money, you need experience, and you need time, right? So we want to, I think it'd be really cool to see how can we enable a project with different partners where we can bring different portions of these things to the table and make it successful. And maybe my goal is we can scale this, right? I love building. I'm currently building other projects right now in East Austin, and I think it'll be really cool if we can bring more women, especially more women, into the development space, because I think we're really lacking in terms of women representation and development, especially residential development. And if we can have that sort of opportunity where we can empower other women, maybe we can partner with them in order to build more, because we're still having a housing shortage. Then I think that was so cool.
Yes. I love that you've turned one property. I mean, I know that there's a lot of hurdles that the city makes you jump through to develop and to add more density. But it is important for us to not, you took one property that potentially, they label stuff as tear downs or major renovation, and you turned it into 2. So stuff like that is really, I think, important for city growth, and especially when our city was such a small town and now it's growing and we need more space for people to live. So I love that. I think also the versatility that someday it could be a long-term rental, it could be mid-term rental, it could be, it'll change with the needs of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think because there's, so many different components to it, you can have a strategy where you have one piece of it long term, one piece of it short term, right?
Yes.
So you can really play around with it and see what the needs are, right? In the community, and then also what's going to, bring us the best cash flow, because, at the end of the day, we do want to make money. This is a business.
Absolutely. And I think in communities like Open House, like your community, like Factora, I think we're normalizing that, yeah, women should make money. We should have money. And it's like, this is okay for us to do something for profit. And I think that is such a taboo. Wildly, it's not taboo for men, but it is taboo for some reason. And I think that's sometimes internalized. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't want to be greedy, but it's like, no, we have the intuition. We have, I mean, the data shows that women owned businesses do better than men owned businesses. So I don't know. It's really exciting and inspiring to see women taking charge. And I mean, when you mentioned you need time, experience, and money, y'all didn't have any experience doing this. You developed that skill. Like now you literally have developed the developer skill that you can now share with other people. And the fact that you're prioritizing doing so is really inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, one of the things that really connected Chloe and I is because, yes, we wanted to get through this project, and that was the focus, over the course of, the year and a half that we were focused on it. But now that it's here and it's ready, we're really able to, remind ourselves why we started this in the first place, because this project is not the end, right? This property is just the beginning of empowering women, getting more women to invest in real estate, creating a space for, women to bring their communities together, to be able to grow their businesses. Like that is the mission, and this property is just the beginning of that.
I love it. That's so exciting. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up? That was like, it was so good, so clear. Like I feel like someone could take this recording and just go and do it themselves, which is everything you want. But anything else you want to share?
No, I mean, I think a lot of times us as women, we're like perfectionists. We're like, oh, I can't do it if I don't have 100% of everything, right? But Steph, like, I bought my first primary with Steph, right? And that was
Yeah.
only November of 2019. Like my journey hasn't been that long, but and I didn't have all of the things, but I think knowing that there's community out there who can support you, and also see other people, especially other women. Like I saw you, Steph, doing all these sneaky duplexes and all this stuff, and that's how I got started, right? So I think just seeing that what other people are doing, especially other women, and being inspired by it, that's how I get my energy of like, what am I going to do next time, right? Just so that don't give up, think big, right? Look at other people who's doing it, and think that they didn't come from trust funds, like, right, like they didn't have all the millions of dollars of money, right, but yet they're doing it. And I think with that sort of the mindset of like anything is possible because other people can do it, I think any woman who's listening to this recording, you can do it too. Ask for help, ask for feedback, ask for show up, right? Show up to these events and meet people, and be surprised to see how much you can get done in such a short time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I also want to give a huge shout out to Open House, because you guys were very integral in my own real estate journey. I had bought a property, very much, it was a condo, it was like 20% down because that was the only way that you could do it. And then afterwards, as I started to become a part of the community and hearing people's stories and, kind of realizing, oh, these are women just like me. This is actually applicable to me. This is not, like wealthy, older like men sitting in a room. It's like these are women who look like me, right, at the same stage of life as me, and and that inspired me to take on a project that was a renovation, and and that was totally outside of what just a year or two I thought was was normal. So, I think it's really just about sharing stories. And when you do that, you realize this is for me. This isn't just for somebody else.
I love it. And I think community is like at the heart of this. Is when you surround yourself by other people who are doing these things, it becomes more normal. Like we're in these circles where y'all are coming and saying, yeah, we just developed a piece of land. And it's like, wait, we just talking about that like it's something that I could do. So I agree. Both of you touched on it. It's amazing. And when we all come together, it's so magical. So I love it. I'm excited to do more with y'all in the future. And thank you so much for coming on here. Sharing your story. It really is who knows what this could spark. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Y'all are very impressive.
Thank you so much for having us. It was such a pleasure.
Yay.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Thank you.